In my 38 years as a pediatrician, I learned that mothers know when something is wrong with their children. But what happens when that mother has been convinced she's the crazy one? That's when grandmothers step in. The text came at 11:47 p.m., just 3 words from my granddaughter Emma. "Grammy, help me." My hands shook as I dialed her number. She answered on the first ring, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm at Memorial Hospital, the ER. Richard brought me, but he's saying I fell." "Grammy, I didn't fall. He pushed me down the stairs when Mom was at work." Richard Ashford, my daughter Lauren's husband of 2 years, the chief of surgery at Memorial, the man who'd swept into their lives with his perfect smile and his prestigious position, promising to take care of them after Emma's father died from cancer. "Where's your mother?" I asked, already grabbing my car keys. "She's coming, but Richard called her first. He told her I was being dramatic again. Grammy, you have to believe me. Please. I'm on my way. Don't let them discharge you until I get there." I drove through the empty streets of Portland faster than I should have, my medical mind already cataloging possibilities. Emma was 10 years old, bright, honest, never one to exaggerate. 6 months ago, she'd started becoming withdrawn. Lauren attributed it to adjustment issues with her new stepfather. I'd suspected something darker but had no proof. When I arrived at Memorial's ER, I found Emma in a curtained bay, a young resident examining her wrist. Richard stood nearby in his surgical scrubs, looking every bit the concerned parent. He saw me and his expression hardened. "Catherine, I wasn't aware Lauren called you." "She didn't. Emma did." I moved past him to my granddaughter. "Sweetheart, tell me what happened." The resident, whose badge read Dr. Sarah Mitchell, looked uncomfortable. "Mrs. Morrison. I'm in the middle of an examination." "It's Dr. Morrison, and I'm also her grandmother." "Emma?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I was coming downstairs to get water. Richard was in the living room and he'd been drinking. He started yelling at me about leaving my homework on the table. When I tried to go back upstairs, he grabbed my arm and pushed me. I fell all the way down." "That's not what happened," Richard said smoothly. "She tripped over her own feet. She's been clumsy lately, always on that phone. I tried to grab her but couldn't reach in time." I examined Emma's left wrist, already swelling. But it was her right upper arm that caught my attention, 4 distinct oval bruises, the unmistakable pattern of adult fingers gripping too hard. "Dr. Mitchell, are you documenting these bruises on her upper arm?" The resident glanced at Richard, then back at me. "Dr. Ashford already explained those are from gym class yesterday." Emma confirmed it. I looked at my granddaughter. She was staring at the floor. "Emma? That's what he told me to say," she whispered. Richard's voice cut through the room like a scalpel. "Catherine, you're upsetting her." Emma's confused from the pain medication. "She hasn't received pain medication yet," I said. "I can tell by her vitals on the monitor." "Dr. Mitchell, as a physician, you know those bruises are consistent with forcible gripping, not a fall. The pattern. With all due respect, Dr. Morrison, you're retired," Richard interrupted. "And this isn't your patient. Sarah, continue your examination." My stepdaughter fell down the stairs. Period. Dr. Mitchell's hands trembled slightly as she returned to examining Emma's wrist. I recognized that fear. Richard Ashford wasn't just any attending. He determined which residents got good evaluations, which ones moved forward in their careers. The curtain pulled back, and my daughter Lauren rushed in, her hair disheveled, still in her bank teller uniform. "Emma, baby, are you okay?" "Mom," he pushed me. "I told you." "Emma, we talked about this," Lauren said, but her voice lacked conviction. "You need to be more careful on the stairs. Richard tried to help you." I watched my daughter's face, saw the exhaustion there, the defeat. This wasn't the strong woman who'd fought to save her first husband's life, who'd worked 2 jobs to keep their home. This was someone who'd been systematically broken down. "Lauren, look at her arm. Those are grab marks." "From gym class," Lauren said automatically. and I realized she'd been coached too. Dr. Mitchell cleared her throat. The X-ray shows a hairline fracture in the distal radius. I'll need to splint it and I'll handle the discharge paperwork, Richard said. Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. Emma can follow up with her pediatrician next week. No, I said firmly. I want a full examination documented. Every bruise, every injury. And I want it done by someone who isn't on Dr. Ashford's service. Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. Catherine, you're being paranoid. This is embarrassing for Emma, for Lauren, for all of us. Sarah, discharge paperwork, please. I'm calling Child Protection Services, I said. No! Lauren grabbed my arm. Mom, please. You're making this worse. It was an accident. Richard would never. He's been hurting her, Lauren. Look at your daughter. Really look at her. For just a moment, I saw doubt flicker in Lauren's eyes. Then Richard put his hand on her shoulder and squeezed, and I watched that doubt disappear. Dr. Morrison, you need to leave, Richard said. You're causing a scene. Security can escort you out if necessary. Grammy, don't go, Emma pleaded. Doctor. Mitchell handed Richard a tablet with discharge papers. He signed quickly, efficiently, the way he probably signed off on dozens of procedures a day. Emma was just another form to process. I pulled out my phone. I'm documenting this. Every bruise, every detail. Richard moved faster than I expected. His hand closed around my phone, his grip strong enough to hurt. You're not taking pictures of my stepdaughter without parental consent. That's harassment. Lauren, tell your mother to leave. Mom, please, Lauren begged. You're making things so much harder. Just go home. Emma's fine. We're fine. If you take another step toward that child with your phone, I'll have you arrested, Richard said quietly. This hospital has excellent security cameras. They'll show you becoming aggressive in an ER, refusing to leave when asked. As chief of surgery, I have significant credibility here. As a retired physician with no current standing, you have none. Think carefully about your next move, Catherine. I looked at Emma, at the fear and hope warring in her eyes. I looked at my daughter, at the woman who'd been gaslit into doubting her own instincts, and I made a decision that would either save them both or cost me everything. I'm calling CPS, I repeated, and if anyone tries to stop me, I'll call every news station in Portland. Richard's expression never changed. Sarah, note in the chart that the patient's grandmother became verbally aggressive and had to be removed from the ER for disruptive behavior. Security, please escort Dr. Morrison from the building. 2 security guards appeared. They were polite but firm, and I had no choice but to leave. As they walked me to the exit, I heard Emma crying and Lauren's voice trying to soothe her. In my car, I sat for a moment, hands shaking with rage and helplessness. Then I called Child Protection Services. The overnight operator took my report, promised someone would follow up within 24 hours. I knew how these things worked. A powerful doctor, a mother who'd deny everything, a child who'd been coached on what to say. But I hadn't spent nearly 4 decades treating abused children without learning a few things about how predators operate and how to fight them. I went home and pulled out every file I still had from my practice. Old protocols, documentation standards, the legal requirements for mandated reporting. Then I started making a list of everyone I knew at Memorial Hospital who wasn't under Richard Ashford's direct authority. At 3 a.m., I got a text from Lauren. Mom, CPS came to the house. They interviewed Emma and said there's no evidence of abuse. Richard is furious. Please stop interfering in our lives. I called her immediately. Lauren, listen to me. When your father died, what did I do? What? Mom, it's 3 in the morning? Answer me. When your father had his heart attack, what did I do? Her voice cracked. You performed CPR for 12 minutes until the paramedics arrived. Did I give up? No, I'm not giving up on Emma. Or you. Richard is hurting her, and he's convinced you that you're crazy for noticing. That's called gaslighting, and it's what abusers do to the adults in their victims' lives. He's not, Mom, you don't understand. He takes care of us. We'd lose everything if… If what? If you leave him? You had everything before he came along. You had yourself. She hung up. The next morning, I went back to Memorial Hospital. Not to the ER, but to medical records. I'd maintained my voluntary teaching position in the pediatrics department, which gave me certain access privileges. I submitted a formal request to review Emma Ashford's ER records from the previous night. The clerk looked uncomfortable. Dr. Morrison, these records have been flagged. Flagged how? By Dr. Ashford. Access restricted to treating physicians only. Of course. Richard was already covering his tracks. I tried another approach. Can you tell me if there were any photographs taken of the patient's injuries? I'm not supposed to say. Were there? She glanced around, then whispered, "No photographs were uploaded to the system, Doctor." Mitchell's notes mention bruising consistent with stated mechanism of injury, meaning the fall story. Nothing about suspicious patterns. I thanked her and left, my mind racing. Richard had controlled the narrative completely. The young resident had documented only what he'd told her to document. Emma's injuries would heal, the records would show an accidental fall, and if I kept pushing, I'd be labeled a troublesome relative with boundary issues. Unless I could find other victims. I spent the next 2 days calling every pediatrician I knew in Portland, asking careful questions. Had any of them treated children from families where Dr. Richard Ashford was involved? Had they noticed anything unusual? Most had nothing to offer. But on the third day, I reached Dr. Patricia Vasquez, who ran a clinic in North Portland. "Richard Ashford's name is familiar," she said. "Let me check my files." She called me back an hour later. "Catherine, I think you need to see something." In her office, she showed me a file from 18 months ago. A girl named Jessica, age 12, had been brought in by her mother Richard's ex-girlfriend. Multiple bruises, a fractured collarbone, claims of being pushed during an argument. "What happened?" I asked. The mother filed a police report, but Richard had an excellent lawyer. He claimed Jessica was acting out, that she'd hurt herself for attention, that the mother was making false accusations to get money from him. The case was dismissed. The mother and daughter moved out of state. "Do you have contact information?" "I can't give that to you, but…" She wrote something on a post-it note. "If you happen to search Facebook for Jennifer Martinez Seattle, you might find something." It took me 2 hours, but I found her. I sent a message explaining who I was, what was happening with Emma. 3 hours later, Jennifer Martinez called me. "He almost destroyed my daughter," she said. "And when I tried to get help, everyone believed him. He's charming, respected, wealthy. Who was I? Just another bitter ex making accusations. Would you be willing to testify to what happened? If I can build a case against Richard Ashford, he has lawyers, connections. He got my police report sealed, convinced a judge I was unstable. What makes you think you can do anything?" "Because I'm not giving up on my granddaughter." There was a long pause. "Jessica still has nightmares. She's in therapy. But if you can actually stop him from hurting other children, yes, I'll testify. I'll tell anyone who'll listen what he did." I called 2 more people that day. A court advocate I'd worked with for years, and a journalist named Marcus Webb, who'd covered medical scandals before. Both agreed to meet with me. That evening, Lauren called. "Mom, Richard got a restraining order against you. You're not allowed within 500 feet of Emma, me, or our home. If you violate it, you'll be arrested." "Lauren, I'm sorry. I have to support my husband. Emma is fine," the CPS investigator agreed. "You need to accept that and move on." "What did they threaten you with?" I asked quietly. "What?" Richard and his lawyers. "What did they say would happen if you didn't do this?" Her silence told me everything. "I love you, Lauren. I love Emma. When you're ready to tell the truth, I'll be here." She hung up without responding. The restraining order was delivered the next morning. It cited my erratic behavior, my harassment of hospital staff, my unfounded accusations. Richard's lawyers had been thorough. But restraining orders work both ways. I now had legal documentation that Richard Ashford considered me enough of a threat to take legal action. That would be useful later. Marcus Webb met me at a coffee shop downtown. I showed him everything: Jennifer Martinez's statement, the hospital records I'd copied, Emma's terrified text message, the pattern of Richard's behavior. "This is solid, but circumstantial," Marcus said. "You need something concrete. A recording, additional witnesses, medical evidence he can't explain away." "I can't get near Emma to gather evidence." "No, but you can file a formal complaint with the hospital's ethics committee. As chief of surgery, Ashford has power, but he's not immune to investigation, especially if there's a pattern of abuse and potential medical negligence that resident who didn't document the injuries properly. That's a violation of mandated reporting laws. Richard will just say she documented what she saw. Probably, but it creates a record. And if we can find other victims, other incidents." Marcus leaned forward. "Dr. Morrison, this isn't going to be fast or easy. Powerful men like Ashford know how to protect themselves, but they also get arrogant. They make mistakes. We just need to be patient." I didn't feel patient. I felt like Emma was in danger every single day. That night, I got an email from an account called Concerned Physician. The message was brief. "Dr. Morrison, I was the resident who treated your granddaughter. I'm sorry I didn't document everything I saw. I was afraid. If you're still trying to help Emma, check the hospital parking garage security footage from that night. Camera 7, timestamp 11:32 p.m., before they brought her in." My hands trembled as I replied, "How do I access that footage?" "You can't, but Marcus Webb can file a FOIA request. It might take weeks, but it's there. Richard doesn't know about it. He only had the ER footage reviewed." I forwarded the email to Marcus immediately. He filed the Freedom of Information request the next morning. Then I waited. Days turned into weeks. I stayed away from Emma and Lauren, honoring the restraining order but dying inside, wondering if my granddaughter was safe. Jennifer Martinez flew to Portland. She brought Jessica, now 14, brave and terrified at the same time. They met with the hospital ethics committee, with my lawyer, with CPS. Jessica's testimony was devastating. "He told me I was special," she said. "Then when I made him angry, he'd grab me so hard I'd bruise. When I told my mom, he said I was lying for attention. He almost convinced her. He's really good at making people doubt themselves." The hospital ethics committee opened an investigation. Richard immediately went on the offensive, claiming harassment, defamation. His lawyers filed motions to dismiss, to seal records, to discredit Jennifer and me as vindictive women with an agenda. And then Marcus Webb got the security footage. Camera 7 inches the parking garage showed Richard's Mercedes arriving at 11:32 p.m. Richard got out of the driver's side. He opened the back door and pulled Emma out. She was already injured, limping, holding her wrist. He gripped her upper arm, the exact location of those 4 bruises, and pulled her roughly toward the ER entrance. The audio was faint, but clear enough. "If you tell them anything other than you fell, I will make sure you never see your grandmother again. Do you understand me?" Emma's small voice. "Yes, sir." Marcus showed me the footage in his office. I watched it 3 times, and each time felt like a knife to my chest. "This is evidence of assault and witness tampering," Marcus said. "I'm taking this to the police and the district attorney's office. Richard will say it's taken out of context. Let him try. Dr. Morrison, we have him." The next 48 hours were a blur. The police got a warrant to examine Emma. A pediatric specialist, not affiliated with Memorial Hospital, documented 11 separate injuries in various stages of healing. When interviewed without Richard present, Emma told everything. The shoves, the threats, the way Richard would hurt her, and then convince Lauren it was Emma's fault or an accident. Lauren finally broke when the detective showed her the parking garage footage. She collapsed, sobbing, admitting she'd known something was wrong, but Richard had convinced her she was being paranoid, overprotective, that she should be grateful he'd married her. "He'd slip medication into my coffee," she said, "to make me tired, less aware. I thought I was just stressed, but he was drugging me so I wouldn't notice what he was doing to Emma." Richard Ashford was arrested at the hospital during his afternoon surgical schedule. The hospital board immediately suspended him. The investigation revealed 2 other families, 3 other children he'd abused over the years. All had been silenced with money, threats, or manipulation. Dr. Sarah Mitchell came forward voluntarily, admitting that Richard had told her to falsify the documentation or he'd have her dismissed from the residency program. The hospital faced massive liability for allowing a chief of surgery to operate with such unchecked power. At Richard's trial 6 months later, Emma testified via closed-circuit video. She was brave and clear, telling exactly what had happened. Jennifer Martinez and Jessica testified. Lauren testified, breaking down as she described how Richard had systematically isolated her from her support system, convinced her to doubt her own perceptions, used his position and her financial dependence to control her. I testified about the night in the ER, about the patterns of abuse I'd recognized, about why I'd refused to stay silent even when threatened. The jury convicted Richard Ashford on 8 counts of child abuse, 2 counts of assault, and 1 count of witness tampering. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison. But the work wasn't finished. The hospital settled with Emma and Lauren, but more importantly, they implemented new protocols. The Morrison Protocol, they called it, though I'd suggested they name it after Emma. Anytime a child presented with injuries, a mandatory consultation with a pediatric specialist was required, separate from the treating physician. Documentation standards were enhanced. Power dynamics between attendings and residents were addressed. Memorial Hospital wasn't the only one to adopt these changes. The story had gotten national attention. Other hospitals across the country began implementing similar safeguards. 6 months after the trial, Lauren and Emma moved into a small house near mine. Emma was in therapy, healing slowly but steadily. Lauren had started going to support groups for domestic abuse survivors. "I should have believed her immediately," Lauren said one evening over coffee. "I should have trusted my instincts. He was good at what he did," I said. "That's what made him dangerous. You're believing her now. That's what matters." Emma came into the kitchen, homework in hand. She'd grown 3 inches, and there was color in her cheeks again. "Grammy, can you help me with my science project?" "Of course, sweetheart." As I helped her lay out her materials, she said quietly, "My therapist says I'm brave for testifying." "You are brave." I was scared, but I knew you wouldn't stop trying to help me. That made it easier. I hugged her carefully, aware that she still sometimes flinched from unexpected touch. "I'll never stop fighting for you. Never." Last week, I got a letter from a grandmother in Ohio. Her granddaughter had been hurt by her stepfather, and the family court system wasn't listening. She'd read about Emma's case and wanted advice. I spent 3 hours on the phone with her, walking through the steps, connecting her with resources, explaining how to document, who to contact, how to persist when everyone tells you to stay quiet and stop making trouble. At 64 years old, I thought I'd retired from medicine. Instead, I'd found my most important work yet. I volunteer now with a network of advocates who help families navigate the system when children are being abused by powerful people. We call ourselves the Believers because sometimes all a child needs is one person who will believe them when everyone else won't. Richard Ashford sits in prison, his medical license permanently revoked. The hospital has paid millions in settlements to his victims. Dr. Sarah Mitchell finished her residency and now works at a clinic for underserved children, specializing in abuse cases. And Emma? She's 12 now, thriving in school, laughing more every day. She wants to be a lawyer when she grows up, says she wants to help kids like her. Lauren is getting her teaching degree, something she'd always wanted to do before life got in the way. She's stronger now, no longer second-guessing every instinct. Sometimes late at night, I still think about that text. Grammy, help me. 3 words that changed everything. And I think about all the children whose text messages go unanswered, whose calls for help are ignored or dismissed or explained away by charming predators with prestigious titles. That's why I keep doing this work. That's why I'll keep fighting until I can't anymore. Because grandmothers know. And we never give up on our children. The phone rings at 2 a.m. 3 weeks later. Unknown number. I answer anyway. Dr. Morrison? You don't know me, but I got your number from the support network. My grandson called me from the hospital, and I don't know what to do. They're saying he's lying, but I know he's not. Can you help me? I'm already reaching for my car keys. Tell me your grandson's name and which hospital. I'm on my way. Because this is what I do now. This is what matters. And I'm never too tired, never too old, never too afraid to answer when a child needs someone to believe them.